That's right back, Charlie. That's right.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian, man. Come on.
There's always that active when defending. I think it's like. There's always that active when defending. I think it's like. There's always that active when defending. I think it's like.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian, man. Come on.
As I always say, with an introduction like that, what more is needed? People deluded, I'm back again. Support is show business. I've got Amenya, I've got SV, and I've got Sham. Again, we all know about you two are new on the channel. Take it away, man. Let people know who you are, what sort of content you do, because everybody here's got a platform. Make sure you're following and subscribing to everyone, people, by the way. So yeah, man, take the floor, people. All right, man, don't be shy.
Yeah, I'll go. I'm Sheldon, also known as SV Carbaholic, so you might follow me on Twitter. So yeah, big Arsenal fan.
Come on.
Been going to the Gooners for best part of 3 decades. So so yeah, man, looking big up to Deluded for having me on.
Mine, my guy.
And yeah, man, we're all in the running now, man. So fingers crossed for a celebration, man. I'm trying to drink some Hennessy at the parade.
I hold your thoughts on any of that. I don't check the league table, man. But yeah, Sham.
Yeah, I'm Sham, and I forgot to unmute at the beginning there, so we're off to a great start. But yeah, I've been just writing and potting about Arsenal for a few years now. Currently doing the This Week in Arsenal podcast with Sash, also known as LT Arsenal, and yeah, glad to be on.
Appreciate you lot for tuning in, man. First thing I want to get into, again, you two haven't been on the platform, so before I obviously ask some questions, what have you lot made of the season, man? What have you made of the last month? What's your thoughts in relation to Arteta? Just everything, man. You two specifically, man. Take the floor, man.
Yeah, I'm blown away, man. I can't lie. This wasn't my expectation at the start of the season. And even halfway through the season when Jesus got injured, wasn't expecting us to keep this up. So, you know, massive props, been blown away by everything we've done. You know, I think there's been, especially with the young players, they've leveled up. Saka, Martinelli, Ødegaard, you know, the level of productivity we've had. You know, you've got 3 players on 10 or more goals in the league, which I think is fantastic. Just the overall level of play, the structure, the system. You've not got many complaints from me, man. So, and yeah, it's just reaching this position now. Like, it's just the level of nervousness that you have going into the home straight. Everyone knows it's essentially 10 finals. Gonna be there tomorrow, man. So I'm just nervous, man. I know we should act like we've been here before, but listen, it's been the best part of 2 decades. So the last time we were doing this, I was in secondary school, man. So I've seen and done a lot since then. So yeah. So fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed. Let's see.
Sham, yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I entered the season hoping for top 4 finish, right? Because that's kind of the progression we've been on. So yeah, just to see us blow those expectations out of the water, and I think be pretty much outright the best team in the league so far this season. Not just, you know, by what the table says, but also in terms of how we've played, you know, our attacking prowess going forward. We've been relatively secure at the back. I know that really hasn't been the case for the last, you know, month or so. But yeah, I'm just, I think this is the most fun I've ever had as an Arsenal supporter. You know, and it just feels like, you know, the club is really coming together, and we're watching Hale End graduates contribute to a title race. We're watching a guy who used to be a captain under our greatest manager ever, you know, come back as a manager himself. And, you know, now in his third full season, we're 10 games away from lifting the Premier League title for the first time in almost 20 years. So, yeah, it's been amazing to watch. And honestly, you know, the scope of the challenge that we've been up against, you know, you're talking about teams like City that, you know, have the best manager in the world and can buy basically whoever they want to. You have United, who've been throwing around money for years. You have Chelsea, who, you know, we thought after the Abramovich era we'd be entering a little bit smoother sailing with them, but Bowley has kind of shown up and showed that he's also willing to empty his wallet like that. So yeah, I mean, just to see what we're overcoming and the way that we're doing it and the togetherness of the club, I love it, and long may it continue.
I mean, I know A's thoughts as well. Hey, feel no way about saying anything. What do you lot make of if we don't win this league title? I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Of course, I don't want that to happen. But where would you lot's opinions with the club, potentially with the manager? I know it weren't the plan in August, but having been given an opportunity and failing to do it, what would that mean for the club and mean for us, really and truly? How would you lot look at this if ultimately it doesn't end how it could end?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because like you said, none of us expected to be in this position as we are now. But obviously, expectations change as the season goes on. December time, we're thinking, all right, we can just hold on a little bit, wait till Jesus is back, see what go on then. We can then reassess things. 10 games to go. We're out of all other competitions. So I can't lie. We don't really have a choice, man. And especially the way guys are going to cook us. If we do not win,
we're going to get cooked on socials, man.
It'll be a very good day, I'll be honest. So I really hope, obviously, we can pattern up and get a calm, at least 7-8 wins. I think job done. But we'll see. And as far as Arteta is concerned, listen, if we do come second, I have no qualms about his job or position or whatever. Like I still believe, because of the age of the squad as well, yes, it's going to be like devastating, but it's not as though we're going to just cut next year and be like back to 8th, 9th, 10th and that. So I think long term, I'm still backing it regardless. I was there in the fields backing it when we were getting packed in 2021. So second place is not going to kill me.
Where you two stand with that?
Yeah. I don't see why any opinion should change. Don't get me wrong. Like, not winning it when we've been top for pretty much 90% of the season would be devastating. I can't lie, but it's not a failure because, like you said, obviously while expectations can change, we knew what we were going into at the start of the season, and I expect us to be here again next season. Do you know what I mean? I think we've worked ourselves up to the position where if we don't win, like, cool, it will hurt. Don't get me wrong, it will sting. Like you said, we're going to get cooked by rival fans, whatever. But then you regroup and go again, and that's been the steady trajectory that we've been on. So. Whether or not we win it, hopefully we do, but we'll be back again competing next year. Saka, Ødegaard, Martinelli will be a year older. Hopefully we'll recruit well. Whoever, you know, they decide to bring in the summer will add to it. So we'll have a stronger squad to be able to compete on multiple fronts. So I'm not overly worried. Like you said, obviously I'll be upset. Anyone would be lying, you know, if they said they wouldn't be upset from here. But it's not what you'd classify as a quote unquote failure. Do you know what I mean? So it would be disappointing, but no, we have a chance, man, and we'll be back regardless. My hope is that going into especially some of those key games away at Anfield, St James's Park, the Etihad, we need that spine fit for me. That's what's key. Like, you know, I always get annoyed when, and you know, if you think back to how last season ended, you know, the narrative.
Don't remind me, man.
The narrative was that we bottled it, and in essence we did bottle it. But you know, context is important. You know, we went into key games without Partey, Tierney was out, Tomiyasu was out. We were playing, you know, Cedric, Lokonga, Tavares. With all due respect, those are not the guys. Do you know what I mean? So
definitely not in crucial moments.
Right, exactly. So you want to be going into the key games. Like if we have, for example, going to Anfield, obviously I know there's concerns about Saliba, but if you had Gabriel, Saliba, Partey, Jesus, I'm talking about that spine. For me, that is key throughout the team. Go into those grounds. I think we can leave with something. Do you know what I mean? Even when we lost against City, in Feb, and people are like, oh yeah, Arsenal were going to drop off. Then obviously we didn't drop off. We won 6 league games in a row after that.
Agreed,
but
yeah.
I would have liked to have seen how we would have performed with Partey and Jesus in that game. If we lose that game, cool. Like no worries. You can then evaluate and see. But I'm always kind of left annoyed, you know, when we go into these big games and we don't have all our big hitters. Like, you know, when you've been seeing Liverpool and City face off against each other the last few seasons, their key personnel are always available. Because I've seen what we would classify as our quote unquote first 11, right? I read that they've only played 6 games this season together.
Well,
So the Zinchenko, Gabriel Saliba, White, Partey, Xhaka, Ødegaard, Jesus, Martinelli, and Saka. They've only played 6 games. Obviously Zinchenko missed games at times. Partey's missing games here and there. Jesus, we know, has been out 4 months. So what we would classify as our quote unquote first 11 has only played 6 games, but they won all 6. Every time they've been fit. So like I said, I would like to see that. Against all of the best teams. And while I'm nervous, I still think we could leave with something, if those guys are fit, man. So hopefully, like I said,
sorry to butt you, but you said something that was interesting. I agree with you for what it's worth, but playing devil's advocate, you said we'll be here next season. What gives you the confidence, like for someone who doesn't necessarily agree or doesn't know what you're referring to, that we'll be doing this next year?
Football is opinions. We can look at it linearly. Like I said, when we had everyone fit at that point last season. If you look at our form last season between January and March, when we were playing that same 11 week in, week out, we were picking up points consistently. We were trending around a 70, 75 point team. And like you said, put it this way, simply, if Partey and Tini don't get injured, in my opinion, last season, we get top 4. We only finished 2 points off top 4. We got 69 points. We're on 69 points right now. That's what we got. So we only missed out on top 4 by 2 points. And like I said, it was more our capitulation rather than Tottenham doing anything great, in my opinion. And when you're asking why do I think we'll be here again next season, I just think you need to look at the level of sustainability in terms of what we're doing. It's very rare. We're not winning games by luck. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, throughout a course of a 38 game season, you will have games where you are lucky, and
but we're earning the right to win.
We're dominating games where, look, we're averaging 65-70% possession in games. We're penning teams back for most of the time. We're out shooting these guys like by crazy numbers. Even the big games we've had, Tottenham home and away, packed them in. Chelsea away at Stamford Bridge, they didn't have a sniff.
Facts.
United at home, packed them in. I know 3-2. It looked a lot closer than the actual. If you saw that game, I think we had 63 touches in the opposition box. That game was not as close as it looked. Even when we lost to United at Old Trafford back in September, if you actually watched that game and saw the pattern of how we shot ourselves in the foot in that game. We shot ourselves in the foot. There was a lot of naivety in that game. So when you ask Deluded why I think we'll be back, if you just look at the sustainability of what we're doing, I even think when we've had negative results, we've always bounced back really well this season. I think as well. I remember, I think a lot of people were throwing their toys at the pram when we lost to Everton, then we drew at home with Brentford, and they were like, and then we lost to City. And people were like, yeah, title done. I was like, come on, guys, grow some balls, man. Like it's a 38 game season. You're not gonna be perfect. You're gonna have blips.
You're gonna hold L's, yeah.
Yeah, it's very rare that you go for a 38 game season without a blip. Like if you look at it now, where are we? 28 games played, 22 of them have been wins. That is a phenomenal level of consistency.
Nothing short.
I don't get how anybody can really look at that and have any issues with that. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, Arteta often talks about the repeatability of what we're doing. So I do not see anything that looks like it's gonna immediately take a downturn. The only thing is, we might get onto this in terms of how we replenish and add to what we already have. Do you know what I mean? So I have concerns around the midfield area because all of our midfielders are, pretty much 30 or above. And I think we need a new layer of level of athleticism in there. So if I'm to be pernickety, that would be where I fix on. But in terms of what I've seen generally, I've not got many think, man. And I think, like I said, even if we don't win, we'll be back again next season.
Fair point, man. Shams, where you at with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm basically in the same boat where, obviously this is kind of this comes with the territory of a title race where if you don't win it, it sucks. And, you kind of have to feel that pain a little bit, but that's kind of the price of being in these kinds of situations. And I'm also confident that we'll be back. This isn't, I know we're entering an era where it feels like every club around us, except for Spurs, have all the money in the world. But like SV said, we have this repeatability in the way that we play. We dominate matches. We aim to win as many duels as we can. We play with physicality. We play with a high technical level. That's going to win out more often than not. And I think on top of that, I expect us to have a pretty significant summer transfer wise. We're hearing about the club being linked to guys like Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo, which I think is really encouraging. So yeah, For me, it depends on how we end up finishing second. If we get hit by the injury bug and we lose critical players at bad times, there's not really much blame you could lay at the feet of Arteta for that. But if we're 3 games out and we're ahead by 5 points and we mess that up, maybe there's questions to be asked there. But generally speaking, I think Arteta deserves all the credit in the world for getting us to this position, and I think it would take something absolutely calamitous for me to not trust him to take us further in the future. So yeah, super encouraged. Let's see what happens in the final 10 games. I think one thing to keep in mind is that City are playing on multiple fronts, right? They're really gunning for the Champions League this year. Yeah, and they're one of the favorites to win it, I think, at this point. And I think something that a lot of people don't really talk about is the fact that City have something of a thin squad. Obviously, their backups are better than most team starters, but I think they're really only using like 18 to 19 players. So to stretch that out, having them play 3 games a week for the next 3 months, that's going to take a toll on them. And I think if we keep on winning matches, if we stay 5 to 8 points ahead of them, there's going to come a point, during this run-in where they're going to have to make a decision about what their priorities are. So, are they going to start guys like De Bruyne and Haaland for a game in the Premier League when they on Tuesday night, they have a big Champions League semifinal to deal with? That's something that they're probably going to have to think about. So if we just continue to, make them feel like the title is just out of reach, I think that plays in our favor in multiple ways. But yeah, again, I think for us to enter the season hoping for 4th, and now, we've won 22, I think, out of our 28 games. We're on course for our highest points total in history. I think the Invincibles set that record for us with 90 points, right? And if we keep up the pace we're at right now, we could finish with 93 to 94, which obviously breaks that record. So, yeah, this is a historic team. And I think there's enough talent in this squad that's young, that's still developing, that's pre-prime, that it's only going to get better. And again, I do expect at least one big name to walk through that door in the summer.
I mean, you lot are speaking facts, but I think an indirect thing that you lot, all 4 of us, have touched on is injuries. Do you lot have sympathies for any injuries that Arsenal obviously have had to deal with? Do you have any sympathy for what's going on with Saliba and Arteta? Because me personally, I've got a lot of sympathies for Arteta, but for every manager, I don't have any sympathies for injuries. Yes, they're unlucky, but they can happen at any time. Arsenal, we've seen this kind of play out. I know Ten Hag wasn't happy necessarily about, kind of talking about us, but I mean, as much as Arsenal and United were to waffle about their injuries, Liverpool and Chelsea have got it worse. Like in life, someone's always got more, someone's always got less. So if injuries were a theme for us, bottling or not getting what we're supposed to, do you have much sympathy? Because surely we should have dealt with this in January or the summer if it was a thing. Because as you kind of said, we had to kind of rely on Rob Holding towards the end of last season, respectfully to him and everyone else. Newcastle away, Tottenham Hotspur, big derby. They're just not built for it. So where are you free with that?
Well, I would say the issue here, obviously, yeah, injuries happen to everyone. Like, we managed to survive without Jesus for ages. The issue here is that we're having these injuries in positions all at once. So let's say right back and centre back here, Tomiyasu gone, Saliba gone. Obviously, we loaned out Cedric, but I didn't want to see that brother playing anyway. We loaned out our bro Maitland-Niles. Like, we don't know if Kiwi was up to scratch yet, because obviously he had his games against Sporting and that. He came on against Crystal Palace. He was all right for 20 minutes, whatever. So it's difficult, man, because at the same time, you can't just go and have like 15 centre backs just in case you happen to have 13 injuries. Like,
also
at some point, you got to just firm it and be like, all right, do you know what? We'll just make do with what we got. Obviously, everyone is scared because it is Rob Holding. Yeah, I've given my thoughts on Rob Holding, what he did last year when I seen that brother walking through the street. But yeah, listen, we got to back him now. He's done all right against Crystal Palace, so let's just hope that he can manage and then pull up at Anfield, because I can't lie to you, I don't want to go Anfield and I'm playing him at centre back. But if
you're not alone, man.
It is what it is, man. Like, we'll see.
Where are you two with it?
Yeah, on the injury thing, I think that the point made is that, injuries always happen, but when it's a bit of a cluster is when it, can be a bit jarring. So like Saliba in itself, you could mitigate it. For example, if Tomiyasu wasn't injured, cool, Saliba's injured, you just slot White back in at centre back, Tomiyasu comes into right back.
Yeah, or
Not
vice
really an
versa,
issue.
really, yeah.
Yeah, or vice versa, whichever way you want to look at that. But the issue we have with Rob Holding, and like I said, this is not to denigrate against him. I want him to do well, but the reality is we've had Rob Holding since 2017. We've seen what he's on. We've seen what happens. We like to play a very high risk, high reward, high line. We push the line very high, so our centre backs are tasked with defending big areas of space, and Saliba and Gabriel have that level of athleticism to defend 1v1 situations, to win their duels against markers. We saw what happened, with all due respect, when Cedric and Holding were exposed by Son in the derby last year.
Several times,
and you only need to look at how Saliba and White haven't given Son a sniff in either of the derby games this year. Do you know what I mean? So that's the level of we're talking about. That's the level of athleticism we're talking about. And it's one thing to say we don't want to have to compromise what we do. Do you know what I mean? So we are our best when we do what we do. Do you know what I mean? So Holding sort of forces us to push our line back, and when we push our line back, then we're not as compact. Spaces pop up in between the lines. You know, people are able to turn, and so it's a worry for me. I think tomorrow maybe we might be able to get away with it, but I'm praying Saliba's fit for Anfield, because I'm not trying to see Darwin Núñez make some runs into those channels, because you know, while I'm not a big fan of him generally as a player, he has the level of athleticism to trouble us. And heck, he scored at the Emirates when he did anyway. So do you know what I mean? So yeah, I hope it's not long term, but it is what it is. We've got what we've got, unless Arteta comes up with another creative solution. My only thing is that we've done what we've done all season, doing the exact same thing. It's a risk to try and experiment now, in my opinion, with the last 10 games of the season. And also, I think Arteta has previous, sometimes when you have an issue, by trying to fix the issue, that you then create another issue elsewhere. So for example, those games where we had an issue at left back, say Tierney wasn't fit, and then we would put Xhaka left back, but then we would compound that problem in midfield. Do you know what I mean? So it's a catch-22. Do you try and solve another situation, but then you create another situation by trying to solve that situation, or do you just plop someone in there and just hope for the best, man? I don't know, but I ain't paid the money for that in it. So hopefully Arteta can come with the solution. Like I said, tomorrow hopefully we'll be okay, but I think for Anfield, there's definitely going to need to be some thinking around that.
How worrying is it with Saliba's injury for you lot? Because we don't know. I know a lot of the journalists, and you look can see the amount of tabs I've got up there just trying to see what's going on. Everybody's got their own personal sort of twist. Now, Arteta came out and he said he's hopeful that he'll play a bit more this season. He hasn't ruled him out or ruled him in for Liverpool. Obviously, you can see the games we've got in it. Fair enough, respectfully to Leeds, they're fighting for their lives. As you lot have said, and I agree, should be able to get away with Rob Holding. It's ironically, he played well at West Ham last season, but it's the Liverpool away, it's the West Hams, it's potentially if you play against City, it's Chelsea at home, it's Newcastle. How worrying is Saliba's injury, man?
Yeah, it's worrying for sure, because Saliba's a big part of the way we play, and I'm not historically a big fan of Rob Holding. I think he's a great low block defender, but like the others have kind of alluded to, he's not a high line guy. He doesn't have the athleticism to help keep things compact and track back and chase after some of the quicker, more physical players in the league. The thought of him going up against Darwin is pretty scary. When we played City earlier in February, his matchup with Haaland for 45 minutes. Yeah. He did a decent job, but it was nervy the whole time. And
sorry to interject, bro. He did get dragged at half time in that game as well, by the way.
I know. They didn't score at that point, so Holding can save a bit of face, but I agree, man. He got stressed.
And that's the thing. And he got a yellow card in the first half, didn't he? Right?
Yeah. And everyone was like, if he doesn't get subbed, you know how it's going to go. We've seen it before, respectfully.
Exactly, yeah. So, he's just not a guy who can cope with pace, and his distribution on the ball is not as great as, guys like Saliba and Gabriel and White. With all that being said, I'm not worried about him for Leeds, right? I'm not worried about him for teams in the bottom half of the table, especially, because tomorrow we're going up against a Leeds side that doesn't have Tyler Adams, that doesn't have Nyonto. there's a third player they have. I don't remember how to pronounce his name, so I'm not going to attempt it. But
Italian guy, innit?
yeah. So yeah, it definitely affects how we play, but I think we can get by here and there. The thing about Saliba is that, you know, you're not dealing, and I want to preface this by saying I'm not a doctor or medical professional, so, you know, I'm only going to say like what I know for sure, and I'm not going to try to speculate on anything. But the thing about back injuries is that generally there doesn't seem to be like a set timeline for this injury, right? So it's all about just seeing how his body responds to treatment and training and hoping that, you know, he can feature at some point this season. But I think Charles Watts tweeted out earlier that during the embargoed section of the comments, he basically said that there's not really any concern about Saliba needing injury, which I think is highly encouraging. That doesn't mean, you know, that means that he's probably not out for the season. And then James Benge also tweeted out that he basically said something to the effect of, because Arteta isn't really forthcoming with injury news a lot of the time, it's important to watch him and his body language and his demeanor when he talks about this kind of stuff. And he didn't seem all too stressed when talking about
he's very much like
Saliba.
Wenger Arteta when it comes to the injuries.
Exactly, yeah. And so those are like little crumbs to feed off of. But, you know, generally the vibe I get is that we're probably going to see Saliba at some point this season. And, you know, for games like at the Etihad, at Anfield, I think we still have to go to Newcastle as well. So for games like that, you know, I think you're just kind of doing a cost benefit analysis in terms of, you know, do we want to risk him and aggravate the injury, potentially make it worse? Or, you know, is it more important that we get our best player out there, even if he's not at 100% during a title run-in? So, yeah, I think that's a call for the club and the player to make. I think we will see Saliba at least a few more times over the course of the season. But with Holding, I think the bright side to look on is the fact that the team around him is way better than what it was last season, right? True. We're going from having El Neni in midfield and having Cedric to his right, and, you know, having to play Tomiyasu at left back. You know, now we have Partey. Now we have White next to him. Now we have Zinchenko playing left back. Now we have, you know, Gabriel Jesus in front. We have Odegaard, who's another year better in his development. So I don't think we're going to keep that many clean sheets, or at least as many clean sheets as we would have if Saliba was available. But I do think we're going to score more goals. And at the end of the day, I think it's just going to kind of become a case of, can we score more than we concede in these games, especially in the bigger games, you know, if Holding has to go up against Liverpool or City or Newcastle or, you know, maybe even Brighton as well. So, yeah, the whole situation is worrying, but I don't think there's any need for doom and gloom at this point.
I'm with you, man. I think the only issue for me is now, obviously, you know, normally bad news comes in several sections. We as you know, we lost Saliba and Tomiyasu. Now, Tomiyasu's one's more serious than Saliba's. It's just, especially with the defense, because if we lose, God forbid, but Benjamin White has to go over to centre back. Only God knows who plays right back. Do you go over tried and tested, untried and untested young player? Do you put Partey out there like he did at a period against Palace, which obviously has a knock-on effect for our midfield and ultimately affects the high line, affects how we dominate midfield, and affects how we score goals against Leeds? Respectfully to them, Holding should have enough in him to get over that. And for Rob Holding, you know, the world doesn't necessarily believe in you. The manager who picks you does. Go out and show why you should play, because you haven't had too much game time. You won't get too much game time. And actually maybe even change Arteta's thinking, because I can't imagine it would change too much, but maybe he's looking at a right-sided centre-back. As we progress, it kind of becomes redundant how you are as in and around the training ground. Go and convince him otherwise. Speaking of that, how do you lot see all three of you, how do you see the last 10 games playing out, man? I know we can only take one game at a time, but yeah.
I think I've said since like December or November, really, there's 3 games that would have everyone nervous. You got it on the screen there, obviously. City away, Newcastle away, Liverpool away. Liverpool, you could argue, they're in their worst shape for quite a few years now, since they used to get cooked 6-7 years ago. But saying that, we know that we struggle, man. I can't lie, we struggle. And this season, one good thing is that a lot of the stadiums where we usually struggle, we've got wins at, but then there's still those Old Traffords and Goodison Parks that
and
somehow we're still getting packed in. So it's literally 50-50. But I believe from those 3 games, if we could grab 5 points from those 9, I think we've won it. I think we can lock it up there. If we can grab 5 from those, the rest of them, obviously you have to respect Brighton, and I'm not going to respect Chelsea because it's Chelsea, but the rest of them, I'd like to think we win them, innit? Like, I'd like to think we get 7 wins and then see what happens with the other ones. But as for City, I hope that you man are right and the Champions League takes priority and then they go and lose the final. Or the
you hope everyone can do us a favor, man. You hope City can lose every game potentially. I'm nervous. I can't lie, man. I'm confident, but I'm also nervous because me personally, I don't want to look at Liverpool, West Ham, etc., etc. I want to deal with Leeds. 9 times out of 10, it's the games like Leeds that's filled with drama, as we saw against Bournemouth to a degree with Villa away. So I don't know, man, because the thing with me, looking at everybody's fighting for something. Us and City are fighting for the league. Chelsea are trying to claw back something. Liverpool are trying to keep top 4 alive. West Ham, Southampton, obviously Nottingham Forest and Wolves are fighting for their lives. And then you've got Brighton and Newcastle, who are actually in with a fight of Champions League / European football. So we're going to need to just earn the right to win, really. And we're in the final straight now, and it don't let all your hard work become undone would be for me, really. Like, I don't think there's any easy games, if I'm honest, for me personally. It's quite nerve-wracking.
I'm with you, Deluded. I think the final straight is just about getting over the line. Like, you know, and normally I'm a big advocate of, you know, results are a byproduct of how well you've played, but I don't really care about these last 10 games. However we do it, just do it. Do you know what I mean? So, and I think the point you made is very important in the sense that everyone pretty much, you know, sometimes you get towards the end of the season, there are teams that are not playing for everything. Pretty much the bottom half of the league are battling relegation.
Yeah, from 12th to 20th, they're all fighting.
From 12th to 20th, they're battling relegation. So games like Leeds and West Ham and Southampton and not Forest, cool, whatever, but these guys are scrapping for their lives. That in itself throws up a different level of challenge. Do you know what I mean? So, and then from 9th, 10th upwards, these guys are all battling to trying to get into some form of Europe, right? Do you know what I mean? So Brighton, I've been really, really impressed with them under De Zerbi. Do you know what I mean? So if you look at the table, they're only 7 points off top 4, and they have 3 games in hand on Spurs. Do you know what I mean? So I think they're a bit, you know, and if you look at their underlying metrics, for example, with Brighton, they are only 3rd to Arsenal and Man City in terms of possession. They average nearly 60% possession in games, which is more than like United, Liverpool.
This is making me more scared, man.
Yeah, they dominate teams heavily, man, heavily. And what even scares me as well, if you remember when we beat them in December, yeah, they didn't have McAllister because he had just finished World Cup. They didn't have Caicedo, so you know we're going to have to
face towards the end of that game as well.
Yeah, right. So Brighton are very problematic. We've all seen Mitoma. We've all seen how he spun Trent Alexander-Arnold twice out of his loafers. You know, we've seen what Solly March is on. You know, I like the young talent up top, Evan Ferguson. I think he's a really, really good talent. So
very good.
I think with you, I don't think there's going to be any easy game, man. And even when you're saying Liverpool have had a dreadful season, but if you look at the form table at home, they're
up there.
3rd. They're right up there. So Liverpool, for as bad as they've been, it's their away form that's cost them this season, not their home form. At Anfield, anyone can still get it. And I don't think we've won there in like 11 years. So that's
one there, man.
That's one of those. I feel like I need a Robert Pires moment there. You know when we went invincible, Pires cut in like 25 yards out, I need a moment of magic at Anfield. So I need someone to turn it around for us. Yes, I don't know.
Good thing is our away form is the one that has also been kind of surprising, though. So slightly
confident away from home than at home now, if I'm honest.
Yeah, we kind of feel. So I don't say comfortable. Again, Anfield and that is far different. But the way you mentioned Stamford Bridge earlier, I think we little bro Chelsea in the maddest way. But like to me, even though it was only 1-0, that was one of the most
the easiest games of the season.
Impressive performances for me this season. 1-0 against Chelsea. We pretty much dragged them by the ear for 90 minutes. I don't even remember them even having a shot. So hopefully Newcastle and that we can get something.
Yeah. So and I agree with you. And it's interesting. I was having this discussion with someone about, you know, normally when you're going for like top 4, your home form is key. But if you're trying to win the title, you need to be one of the best away teams in the league as well. And I feel like there's been less jeopardy in our games away from home.
Yeah,
Whereas,
yeah. At
and I was
home's
saying
been the
this,
drama stuff, man.
I was saying this to someone. I don't even know what it is at home at the moment. Like since we come back from COVID, like the atmosphere has been sick at the Emirates. Like generally just been sick. But I don't know if that causes the players to play like at 100 miles an hour every game. Almost of the sense that like the crowd are behind them and they're just like, I don't even know what it is, but we don't away from home. We've just had a level of calm in terms of our performances. Like, Arteta talks about going away from home and just shutting up the crowd. There's been a lot of grounds we've gone
There's
to.
been a lot of that, yeah.
We just killed the crowd.
And all you can
dead,
hear
and
is our fans, really.
all you can hear is our fans. And I don't know why there's been so much drama at home, but obviously we still managed to get over the line. But I'd be happy with a lot of 1-0s. I can't lie to you right now.
Trust.
The game can be. You know what?
I'm here for Arteta ball with 10 games left, man. I'm here for it, but just win the games, man.
Like I even think back to the away win away to Leicester. That game was boring as hell, but it was a 1-0. It was dead. Leicester didn't have a sniffle game. I'd take a lot of those.
Well, if we could do that 10 times, I'm cool with it. I'm fully cool with it. I got no issues, man. Where do you think what weaknesses do you think we have in our team, man? Like, where do you think we need to go to that next level? Because as great as we are, we haven't done it yet. Me personally, I think sometimes we've conceded some cheap goals. I know every manager would probably say goals are avoidable, but I think from set pieces we've been a bit shaky. Sometimes we're a bit emotional. I think we're becoming killers in front of goal, and that's progressed. I still think that's somewhere. And then I think it's just down to we're getting to that point where we just probably need some more quality players. If I'm not completely honest.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to know like what exactly is going on with the set pieces. I just think it's kind of coming down to perhaps we were overperforming slightly in the first half of the season, and now things are starting to even out in that regard. But yeah, I don't know. I wish I could tell you what exactly is going wrong with the set pieces. Generally speaking, in terms of us conceding more, I think that's just a byproduct of the fact that we're playing higher and higher in terms of the fact that we're coming up against more and more deep blocks, right? More and more situations in which teams are parking the bus in their own penalty box. So, we're committing more people forward. We're playing at times even a 2-2-6 in possession in and around the opposing penalty area. So what ends up happening is on those situations where we're not able to put the ball in the net or we lose possession, teams are able to break on us, and we only really have, Partey and Saliba and Gabriel back
as the most conservative guys,
to stop those counters. So, those three are really dynamic players, really athletic. And so for the most of the time, it's not a problem. But I think that's just kind of the gamble that you take when you play the way that we are, where, in order to combat these extremely defensive, conservative teams, you play more people, you put more of your own bodies in the opposing penalty box, right, to try to get that goal. But on the flip side of that, that means that they have fewer people to get past when they counter against us.
Naturally,
but I think also I think generally that's a gamble that pays off, because again, we make the pitch smaller when we do that, right? We compress them, we pin people back, we keep players in their own penalty box because they don't want to come out of position, right? They don't want to try to get on the front foot. Yeah, they don't want to try to get on the front foot and basically be ready to counter, right? We kind of scare people into staying in their penalty box. So the breaks don't happen as often as you might expect. And yeah, again, when they do, I think we've got it covered for the most part. But yeah, I think we're just kind of playing in a way that forces our defense and our goalkeeper to contribute a little bit more.
Facts, man. So where do you lot reckon we need to improve? Is it in midfield? Is it up front? Would you bring in a striker? Obviously, you got Balogun shining in France. Would you bring in a centre mid and probably disrupt the partnership of Thomas Partey and Declan Rice? And that's Declan Rice or Granit Xhaka. Declan Rice has been linked with us. Where you lot at with improvements and potentially some of the targets that we've been linked with? Primarily Caicedo, Rice, Lavia, etc.
I'll let you go because I've done my team already.
Yeah, sure. I think if you look at, if you believe the links that we've seen, I think, Rice, prominent one, Caicedo, we've got evidence. Obviously, we know what we were trying to do with him in Jan.
The Emirates against us.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is the next layer we're probably trying to build under Xhaka and Partey. And you know, when I've spoken about having that degree of athleticism in the midfield, that the point was made about how we do well to stop transitions, and those two really help in terms of stopping transitions. But we almost go, the way we play, we almost go like man to man across the pitch. So, and you know, Arteta always emphasizes the importance of like winning your duels. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's really important in games where we might not have played as well this season. I think it's because we've been maybe overrun, or we've struggled to impart ourselves physically against our opponents. I think to Everton away, that was a game that I think we deserved to lose.
Oh yeah.
You know
That's
I mean?
probably one of our poorest, if not the only poorest games this season. We just weren't at it. Weren't at the races at all.
Yeah, one of our poorest. Even I think Sport in the second leg, I actually thought Sporting were good value over the course of the 2 legs to go through, as disappointing as it was to go out. I think Leeds away was actually quite a lucky game we got away.
I was in the trenches that game.
We got absolutely battered that game. So yeah, I think it's more having, because you know, people would look at it and be like, why are you trying to target Caicedo and Rice? It looks like quite a defensive move. I think it's both an attacking and a defensive move. It's attacking in the sense that you have guys that are physically going to pin people back in because they're going to win duels, which will allow you to sustain pressure continuously.
Stay higher up the field as well.
Yes, they higher up the field. But in case we do get transitioned on, these guys are good at defending big amounts of space.
To do it,
Do you know what I mean? So it's a dual thing. So I think that would be where the main bulk of you know, obviously we can't talk about stuff with Partey off the field, so I think that might be a factor. But also you need to bear in mind Xhaka's 30 as well. Partey's about to turn 30. We've signed Jorginho, who's 31. So just that needs El Neni as well. So pretty much those 4 centre mids are all 30 or above. Do you know what I mean? And with all Partey's the only one who can run. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to have to see Jorginho and Xhaka play too many games together. I need legs in there. Pause. Do you know what I mean? So like I need guys who can, you know, who are athletic enough to, you know, offer that two-way dynamism. So yeah, for me, that would be where the bulk of the money is for me spent this in the summer. So I think we probably need to look at a right back. You know, I think it depends what, if they, for example, want to move Tomiyasu into centre back, maybe like having another right back. I know that Fresneda kid from Deluded we were linked with. I have liked the look of what I've seen of him in some videos. And then maybe another forward. And I know guys have spoken about being linked with a striker. I would be shocked if it was, because that would probably spell bad news for Eddie and both Balogun as well.
Definitely one of the two, 100%.
Yeah, one of the two. And I really like Balogun. Really a big fan of his. And it'd be nice to see another Hayland guy come through. I don't know, because I think Trossard signing complicates a lot of things. It probably puts paid, and don't get me wrong, Trossard's done really well. I actually think Trossard's been better at false 9 rather than out wide, because you know how we like to use our wingers, we like them high and wide on the touchline, but Trossard, he doesn't have that pace to isolate his man 1v1. Do you know what I mean? He's probably better when he drops off the centre backs into the half space. You know how we use our false 9s, and look, I think he's got like 6 assists for us or something since Jan. So
he's cooking, man. What a sign!
I think that probably suits his skill set better. If we're gonna sign someone, I want to like another 1v1 demon out wide, you know, that could, and it's evident. Look, you know, Arteta tried to get Mudryk. He tried to get Rafinha as well. I think there was links with Pedro Neto.
Put their fullbacks on skates, man.
Right. So that's what we've been linked with, and I wouldn't mind one of those. But I guess again, also for big fans of Reece Nelson, you know, in his cameos this season, I think he's been really good. And for him, it's about staying fit and having that consistent game time.
That's a good topic. I'm happy you mentioned that. Would you lot give a new deal to Reece Nelson, or is it a thing where, respectfully, it might be time to move on? Because on one hand, I think he should be given a new deal. We got to protect our resale value. He's shown he can be used in the squad. Anyone that will listen, he's spoken about Thingy, how much he wants to stay. One thing Arteta has never changed, regardless of him being fit or not in the squad for tactical reasons, has always been, I believe in Reece Nelson. Maybe if I was him or his advisors, less emotionally, maybe go somewhere where you need to take a step backwards to take a step up, somewhere where you're probably more or less, even though there's none in football, guaranteed to kind of play week in, week out. As you said, we've got Trossard, we've got Saka, Martinelli's come to his own, a fit Smith Rowe has problems on that left-hand side, and there's probably some players I'm missing out.
Yeah, sorry. I'll just quickly make one point and then I'll pass the Sham.
Go
Like
on, do your thing, man.
I've always been a big fan of Reece Nelson. That's the OG star
Same.
boy for me. Before Saka was Saka, you know, it was Nelson we were always talking about. Do you know what I mean? So I've always loved his skill set. And my thing with him is that I always thought he struggled to, you know, translate. And I know you watched a lot of him at reserve level, Deluded, in it. What he always used to do he was basically like Neymar at reserve level, but he struggled to translate that to senior
Confidence
football.
thing, man, more than anything.
Yeah, but when he's actually had cameos this season, like for example the Bournemouth one, he was very direct, very aggressive, and that's what you want to see more from him because
Positive.
you know he has the ability to do that. So it's a tough one because, like you say, if you decide to renew Nelson, that probably kills trying to sign another winger. But then if you look at it, like you said, from Nelson's point of view, you're older than Martinelli and Saka, who are both ahead of you in the
23 now,
pecking
as
order.
Wenger said, you kind of got to stand up now.
Yeah, are you going to get what you want? Like generally, knowing if everyone's fit, you're probably even also going to be behind Smith Rowe in the pecking order. So, you know, it's something for him to weigh up, you know. But I still think there's big potential in Nelson. But at the same time, I would understand people who think, you know, maybe you've had your chance, go and get someone else. So it depends, man. It depends. But the nostalgic, sentimental person in me would be like,
Yeah, I don't want to give up on him either, bro.
So that's me.
Yeah, man. What you lot? Go on, Shams, before I cut you and ask about Pepe. Go on.
Yeah, I was yeah, I would give Reece another deal. I think I'm kind of on the same page as SV, where my dad after the Bournemouth game asked me who Reece Nelson is because, you know, he very casually followed. Like, my brother's a Liverpool fan, so he tries to follow both teams and his own favorite back in Egypt. But he was like, "Who's this Reece Nelson guy?" And I was like, "That guy was basically Saka before Saka came along." And yeah, I still think Reece has a really high ceiling, especially in terms of his talent. And we've seen it in patches this year, right? You know, there was a Bournemouth game where he comes on, has an instant impact, gives that assist to Ben White, and then, you know,
Forest
I think, Forest, he came on, had 2 goals and an assist. I think, you know, against Bournemouth, he produced probably one of the most legendary moments in the last 20 years for us. You know, the talent's still there, but he just hasn't had that consistent game time, and he hasn't been able to develop because injuries have really hampered him. So, I mean, I think no matter what we actually want to do with him, I think, like you said, protecting his value is the important thing and giving him that new deal so that if maybe he has impressed another club into offering some money for him, we can actually get something for him. But I'm definitely not against the idea of holding on to Reece and making him, you know, if anything, at least a squad option going forward, right? Because I think he does have the talent to, you know, contribute in cups, contribute in the Champions League, contribute in the Premier League off the bench. He's a really, really good player. I don't necessarily think that precludes us from signing another wide player, but I do think the priority is in midfield, right? We've been, like I said, we've been linked to Declan Rice. Yeah, we had James Benge on the pod this week, and we were talking to him about it, and he basically said that, you know, Rice would love to come to Arsenal, and he's been asking people about it. Seems to be quote unquote enamored with the club. So I think there's a real possibility that we bring him in. Obviously, you know, we're talking upwards of a £75 million fee to West Ham for him, and, you know, pretty hefty wages. But I think we're going to sign at least 2 midfielders. I think there's a good chance that Rice is one of them. So I definitely think we're going to spend the summer bulking up the midfield. And then I think outside of that, backup right back, I think, is a priority at this point. Tomiyasu, as good a player as he is, has shown that he doesn't really have the durability to at least contribute in that position. Maybe he doesn't have the durability. A little. I mean, I'm not at the point where I want him sold, but I think playing as a fullback has demanded a lot from his body, and this 2 seasons in a row now, where, you know, he's suffered a season-ending injury, or he's been out for a significant period of time, and his injury tends to contribute to, you know, additional wear and tear on the other players around him, right? And we're going to see that probably in the run-in as well. Where
availability is being fit, you're right, man. Exactly,
yeah. So, yeah, it's concerning. I do like the idea of moving Tomiyasu in as like the backup right center back. You know, thanking Holding for his service and moving him on, and then, you know, Ivan Fresneda, like SV said, is someone that we've been interested in. I think, yeah, and then I think Livramento at Southampton is also a guy that we also have our eye on.
Yeah, he's just got to stay fit as well, man.
Yeah, I mean, perfect summer would be 2 midfield signings. I think guys like Rice and Caicedo are really interesting because they can play either the 6 or the 8. So they're very versatile in that aspect. And I think Arteta's shown that he loves versatile players. And Partey is like going to be 30, I think, after this season.
Yeah,
He's
and we're
gonna
always
be,
gambling with Partey, to be honest with you, as much as I like him.
Yeah, and he's getting older. He's had the injury problems. Jacques is also, I think, going to be 31 this summer, or no, maybe 30. I mean, the point is they're both going to be post prime.
They're both approaching that side, yeah.
Yeah, so we have to start getting ready to add in some younger players and bulk up that midfield and have a smooth transition in that regard. So the two midfield players, backup right back, and I think also a wide player, preferably someone on the right who can at least, take a little bit of the burden off Saka, because we do, put a lot of minutes into him every single season. So it would be nice to have someone who can come in and contribute at a high level from that side. And, just spell him a little bit better than, someone like Marquinhos could. So I think the squad is really, really good right now, but, there's definitely some clear areas where we can improve and, even bring in guys who can at least just improve the level of our bench moving forward. And then, guys like Holding and Jorginho, I think they've been excellent servants to the club, even in the limited time that Jorginho's been here. But, those are definitely more stopgap options and actual guys that you want there in the long term.
I'm with you with that. Again, we've kind of all been alluding to it, Caicedo and Rice. Now, there's a reality where we get both, we get none and go for other targets. But if you three were offered the choice between either Declan Rice or Caicedo, which one are you lot going with?
The same price for both of them.
Huh?
Assuming they're the same price.
Good price for both of them, like you said, but I don't know for me personally, because I think with Declan, I think that's Partey's replacement. But then I think seeing what Arteta's done with Granit Xhaka is obviously technically better than Declan Rice, but I think Arteta would want to flirt with Declan and show more gears to his game playing in that 8. With Caicedo, again, I'm not ruling him out as an 8. What I like about him is he just looks like he's ready. He's made for this 6 role. So I would probably, for me, if it was me, I'd probably more lean towards Caicedo. But then again, I'd pick Rice just because, again, I don't know if the papers and the journalists and things are have any credibility, but it seems like that's the one Arsenal are betting on. So if Arteta is betting on Declan Rice, he knows I can make him good in the short, medium, and long term individually and collectively. So I'd probably more lean towards Declan. And it seems that West Ham are probably more easier to negotiate at this period with Rice, his contract and things like that. Brighton have signed Caicedo to a new deal. As we said earlier, they're pushing for Europe. We all know they do a great job with signings. They'll make it difficult, surely more difficult for us. So I'd go with Rice. Where are you lot with?
Whoever Arteta wants more, I'm backing you, bro. Like, whatever you want, I'm on it. Obviously, the thing with Declan Rice, I've been backing it and I'm happy to sign him and whatnot. But him saying like, he's enamored with the club and he loves it so much. Bro, where was he last year when we were 5th? Where was he when we were 8th? And he wasn't in love with the club.
Savic and Vlahovic, really, based on reports.
Yeah, like he wasn't in love with the club. Like, then he's loving the fact that we're top of the league and he's baking off in relegation battles. So obviously, he's gonna say, I would love to go to Arsenal. Like, who wouldn't? So I'm not gonna use his supposed love of Arsenal as one of the factors, because Caicedo was, pretty much begging on Instagram, please let me go to Arsenal.
He was doing the Ainsley Maitland-Niles.
Yeah, that's not really a factor for me. But saying that, I do feel as if Declan Rice did come to Arsenal, I said it before, I think he would be ending up staying there for a good 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I don't know Caicedo personally. I know obviously he wants to help out his 8 siblings and whatever. He might cut to Spain or something. He might cut to anywhere at any given moment. So I guess if I'm having to pick one of them, maybe I'll go Rice, just because I know you got the homegrown thing locked up. You got a proper, let's say, captain and leader there patterned for a good decade if you want it. So
he's got his international teammates here as well, really.
Yeah, 50-50 though. I can't lie. I don't think you can really say you're
man, but you got to pick one, gun to your head.
No, I've gone 51 towards Rice. 51. I feel like there's more guys that can do maybe what Caicedo does than finding a similar profile to Rice ready-made for the Prem anyway. So
yeah, I agree. I would, because even if you couldn't get Caicedo, you could go for like a Lavia, who I actually think is probably stylistically quite close to Partey in terms of how he has, he has that press resistance as a 6. So yeah, I'd go for, like you said, I think Deluded, you made a good point that you know, Brighton are hard to deal with at the best of times. Then they just gave Caicedo a new contract. So if they rejected 70 mil, how much are they looking for in the summer? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and
We showed our
we
hand
know,
in January kind of as
right,
well.
and we know Brighton tax is heavy. We had to pay 50 mil for Ben White. They charge 60 odd for Chelsea to get Cucurella. So I know that these guys, they don't mess about with getting their money. So yeah, Rice for the reasons that you guys have mentioned as well. I think he'd have a good rapport with some of the English guys here already. I think he can play both 6 and 8. I think Arteta wants to get him probably to use him similarly to how Xhaka uses him. So I think, you know, where he probably excels above a Xhaka is that he's a better ball carrier. You know, he's the sort of guy that can travel with the ball 40, 50 yards. You've seen it with
You see
West
him
Ham.
for the youngers,
And he can strike a ball really well. He's got really, really good ball striking. So if you think how many times Xhaka finds himself in promising positions with how we use him now, I think probably Rice could maybe be even a bit more proficient there, whilst having the greater level of athleticism that Xhaka doesn't do, you know, when we're talking about two-way midfielders. So yeah, I could see it working. So I'd go with Rice, and maybe if you can't get Caicedo, go with Lavia as well.
So we've got Rice. Shams, where you at?
I think I would also go with Rice.
Caicedo's getting no love on this stream, man.
I mean, I think Caicedo is an excellent player, and I think he's going to go on to do big things. But yeah, I think Rice would just be a dynastic signing for Arsenal because, again, he has the qualities where he can come in and play as a 6 for us at a very, very high level. Give us a lot of the stuff that we're missing whenever Partey is unavailable, right? He has that physicality. He has that ability to cover large, wide spaces. He's good at carrying the ball, you know, really, really, really reliable defensive player as well. But on top of that, he can play as a left 8, right? You know, he's shown that he at least has a nose for getting into the penalty box. He can carry the ball better than Xhaka does, like SV said. I think the technical ability is a little lacking for Rice, but I think that's something that Arteta can help develop in him. I'm never particularly worried when we sign a player who is a little off in terms of the technical quality because we've seen Arteta just, you know, coach players and make them better and better.
He's not near his peak yet. He's approaching.
Exactly.
That could be a good move.
Yeah. So, I think Rice would be, you know, kind of bang for your buck in terms of you're signing a guy who can play at a high level at the base of your midfield for at least the next 5-6 years. But also a guy who can cover multiple positions in your midfield. He's English. He has something of a rapport at this point with at least Saka, probably. You know, at least
Benjamin
knows.
as well, really.
And he played youth football with Nketiah as well. So, you know, if we do decide to keep Nketiah around, maybe that's something there as well. I just think he's a really excellent player, and you know, the sky's the limit for a guy like him. With Caicedo, you know, again, like I said, really good player, but like the others have kind of alluded to, there are other alternatives there. I think Rice is probably the hardest player in the market to replicate at this point.
I'm with you with that. I think the only thing I would say for Caicedo is that Brighton's way of football and their mythology under De Zerbi is probably more closer aligned to Arteta than respectfully David Moyes. I think with the only thing that would stop me with Declan Rice, and this is why I really only want it if Arteta wants him, is because he's going to have to play completely different. You know, we're going to be on the front foot a lot more and things like that. Again, I don't think, and all three of you have kind of alluded to it, I don't think Declan Rice is kind of rated on his technical level because of who he is as a footballer. But as you lot have said, you know, he's of the right age. He can groom into that role. We've obviously got a couple of players out on loan. You know, would you lot before we speak about certain man's favourites, would you lot give Pepe another chance if he was to stay here for a year? Arguably, that could be cheaper than bringing in another one.
Let me start because already I know I'm gonna get cooked. No, allow the minute. We'll wait for that one. Listen.
Go ahead.
I understand people's reservations about Pepe. I hear it. Can we agree? We're all Arsenal fans. Bukayo Saka, best right winger in the world this season, right?
Yeah.
Cool. The alternatives that you could say maybe are second, third, and fourth, they're not. It's not realistic. We're not going to go get, I don't know, Mo Salah or Mahrez or Dembele, whatever. So now I'm seeing guys go lower, and they're saying Olise. Now I sat there a week or two ago, and I presented a question. And I'll ask you guys. I'll be the host for 2 minutes.
Go on,
Michael Olise. what attribute does he have that you would say he's better than at Nicola Pepe? Anything?
Well, I wouldn't say. I don't
Random
know.
Heart,
You know what? I
genuinely
actually think
nothing.
1v1 really, man. He provokes havoc. I don't think defensively he's on par for Mikel Arteta. Obviously, he's got resale value and all of that jazz. I don't personally think his future is as a winger like that, really, and I don't necessarily know if it lies in the
But that's
10.
a concern.
He's a bit of an enigma.
I heard that about Sancho as well. When they start like not putting up numbers and they start realizing, okay, maybe the idea of this player is better than what we're actually seeing, they start saying, oh yeah, he's not a winger, like maybe you put him in the middle. Guy, listen, love for that free kick versus United. I was celebrating it, I was gassing. I like him a lot. That's the thing. It's not even slander. I like him, but I cannot think of something that he does better than Pepe. Guys were telling me free kicks. I've seen Pepe bag a couple free kicks. Now that's not me saying Pepe is world class and he should be cooking, but I think if he's willing to accept that, cool, you're under Bukayo Saka, which everyone should realize you're not going to start games over Bukayo, especially in this current form. I don't see an issue with giving him one last season, yeah? Just get your head down. Try your best, innit? Try your best. A little impact sub, cause a bit of havoc with tired legs. I'm down for it. Otherwise, you can go and grab Olise and wait for a free kick or something. Feel free, man.
Do you know what it is with Pepe? And nobody was a bigger fan of Pepe than me when we signed him. But I just think the stark reality of what we hoped he would be rather than the reality of what he actually is very, very apparent. There's just certain things like how long he takes to get into his stride when he's going 1v1 at a player. Arteta likes to set the wingers up to go 1v1 straight away. Pepe's he doesn't have the intensity of the work rate.
He's a cage baller, man.
Yeah. Look at what we've done this season. I'm not sure I see Pepe fitting into that at all. Like just the level of intensity that the wingers play
off
at.
the ball defensively as well. To add to your point, I don't know. He's bought into it at a point with Arteta, but I don't know consistently. As A said, especially if you're not starting, like what is your naturally everyone who's not starting is upset, but there was a point. Was it when we won the FA Cup that it looked like Pepe and Arteta? There was a new line over it. He was defending good and whatnot. Yeah. So is his motivation going to be there? Like, are you going to defend with the same intensity? And I remember Arteta, whenever asked about Pepe, he kept saying, training, he needs to show it in training, needs to apply himself. I don't know if he's there. For me, if Arteta says, yeah, then cool, I'm with it. But a lot of the things we're saying about Pepe, if it was Saka, for example, at 21, I'd entertain it all. 27, I need you to be on this. Because as I said, when Saka was coming through with Pepe, if you looked at both of them, and it's harsh to Pepe, but if you didn't know anything about Saka and Pepe, which one looks like the 72 million record signing? Which one looks like a fresh spring chicken out the academy? Well, you would know it's Saka. I can understand if Pepe if Arteta wanted to keep Pepe and he says, you know what, that's probably cheaper than bringing someone in. We'll buy us some time. We all know he's got ability, cool, but I just don't think it's feasible, man. And as you said, them comments about the motivation and that when you're on contracts and whatnot, that would be Pepe with a year left. I don't know, personally.
And that's the thing, like at 72 million and now you're going to be almost 28 years of age. There can't be any chinks in your game. You're supposed to be in the arch of your prime, providing like it's a case of I need you just to plug in and play. Like with Trossard, he's not coming and we're telling him, oh, this, that, and the other.
There's no accessory sold separately business.
Right, exactly. He's very ready-made to be plugged into the system. And bearing in mind, I think actually one of the biggest things I can give Arteta credit for is the work that he's done with his wingers. If you look at what Sterling said about Arteta when he was at Man City, how he helped him with his body position, movement. Sané said exactly the same. And now you're looking at what he's done with Saka and Martinelli. He's turned two 21-year-olds into double-figure goal-scoring league guys. Do you know what I mean? So
even
if he's managed to do it with,
so
he's managed to do that with Sané and Sterling, and now Martinelli and Saka. If you can't do it with Pepe, maybe it's just the case of the guy isn't. Listen, Arteta's a fantastic. He's a great manager, but he's not a miracle worker.
One last run, man. One last run. We got one more in me, man.
It's like one more dance, man. I think with Pepe, people, I think for everyone needs to just accept. We know he, in terms of technical ability and showmanship, he's probably the best in Arsenal. There's a couple of players that are better than him, but we need to look past his technical ability and all the other aspects across 90 minutes. And also for me, it's not as Pepe at his best in this Arsenal team. He would be one of the best. It's what you do at your worst. Saka can still affect the game. Trossard can still affect the game. Martinelli has learned to affect the game. A fit Smith Rowe can affect the game. Pepe's anonymous. Like you're not defending well. You're not.
But it's like my main issue was the alternatives thing. Because like I said, the right winger market, it's not as though it's left wingers. There's like 10, 15 you can rattle off that are like great left wingers. Right wingers, it's not like the market isn't looking that cold. So when I look at alternatives, I'm thinking I'd rather just keep him and spend the money on your Caicedos, Rices, whoever it is you want to discuss. That's why I say
put it this way: I would rather give the minutes to Reece Nelson than give it back to Pepe. Do you know what I mean?
I hear that. I think they're both in the same territory, but I'd rather give him Nelson because again,
Reece at 23 still, you could still work with that. There's still stuff that you can get from him. Pepe at 27, 28. This is it. This is it. It's not going to get any better, respectfully. Do you know what I mean? So, sorry, Shams. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think there's one other problem with Pepe, and that's playing in this current system requires a high level of football IQ and understanding of the system.
Also against him, yeah, facts.
You know, there's a bunch of guys in this current team that are going to go on probably to be coaches in the future. Xhaka definitely looks like he's going to do that. I can see Odegaard doing that after his career is over. Does Pepe strike you as a future coach?
No.
You know, and there's been plenty of times in the last few years when he's been on the pitch and, you know, just has looked pretty lost in terms of where he's supposed to be.
And that's the great point there. Lost.
Exactly. What the system's supposed to look like. So, you know, especially on that right-sided pod, right, where it's currently Saka and Odegaard and White, and occasionally Partey kind of features in there as well. That's running really smoothly right now because you've got 4 guys who are really intelligent, who really understand each other, who know where to be and know that, you know, if this player is here, I'm supposed to be here, and so on and so forth. I just don't see Pepe kind of taking Saka's place there. And I'm not talking about in terms of like starting over Saka. I'm saying whenever we put him on the field instead of Saka to spell him, I don't see Pepe being able to combine with Odegaard and White and Partey and potentially, you know, squad guys below them in the pecking order to as high of a level, right? If Martinelli drifts out to the right side, like he's done a few times this season, I find it hard to imagine Pepe's going to see that, be like, oh, I should go central or I should drift out to the left.
He's almost in his own world at times, yeah.
Exactly. I think Pepe's just going to stay there on the right side with him, and then, you know, it's just going to clog things up and interfere. So I like Pepe a lot. I think he's a really talented player. You know, obviously he's got, you know, pace and skill. I think he's also pretty underrated in terms of his physical attributes. I remember when he was playing for us, he won a lot of aerial duels.
There was times he carried us, if I'm honest. But
like, and he's a guy that makes things happen on the pitch. But unfortunately, you know, that's great for the situation we were in. You know, when we were finishing in 8th place, when we were trying to get into the Europa League. That doesn't really cut it for when you're at the highest levels of the game. You're trying to win the Champions League and the Premier League and go on, you know, cup runs in the FA Cup. So yeah, I think there's some chatter coming out of Nice about wanting to keep him and make that loan a more permanent arrangement. And honestly, if they offer anything near 20 million euros, I think I'd take that and run. If we don't sign another winger, then like SV said, give those minutes to Reece Nelson.
I mean, in Pepe's defense, there has been times he has bought into it. And to answer this question with Aaron, again, I think you need to let go. I think we criticize Arsenal of keeping players past their sell-by date, not making tough decisions. And then, even though I do think there's logic with keeping Pepe, which is why I'm neither necessarily for or against it, he would be here. You know, you're talking to Mikel Arteta. The whole world wanted Xhaka gone. He's rebuilt him. He's kept people like Rob Holding and El Nene around the team for whatever reason. He's elected for Reece Nelson, who, if I'm harsh, has been extremely inconsistent. And at the start of this season, we all know if Saka was coming off, it was Fabio Vieira playing off that wide right. Arteta's smart enough to consider that these are going to be his options in the summer. If he really wanted to keep Pepe or Pepe wanted to stay, the man would be here. I'd love for there to be romance. He comes back next season, he gets a chance, he looks like the Pepe, he plays his way into a new deal. But the reality is we've just simply gone another way now. Like, we just simply can't wait, man, really and truly. Would you rather bring in a winger or a striker? You're offered a right winger that can challenge or potentially dislodge Saka for a place if he's not in form, or you're brought, regardless of Eddie Nketiah and Balogun, you're brought a striker that transforms us. You know, let's just say Osimhen's the man of the moment. We're guaranteed goals with him. Would you elect for a winger or a forward?
You can't answer that question until you give what the winger is, right? Because obviously you mentioned Osimhen as a striker.
Just picture that's true. Just picture the whatever winger. Just that's why I couldn't really think of one.
I know, but that's my issue. There isn't that many right wingers. That's the whole point I've been making. There's not like a long list of right wingers.
That's where we probably need to scout someone. That's actually true. You know, I'm trying to think.
That's the
trying to
whole
give an
point I've been
example,
making.
but I
It's
don't
not
feel
as though
like
like there's a long list and I'm like, yeah, go get either my man plan A, plan
Very
B,
true.
plan C. So it's not even that, oh yeah, he's gonna be cold and whatever. It's just we know strikers, Osimhen raises the level to a ridiculous point. What right winger are you gonna get that's gonna
This is it.
make
Because I'm
this
not
team
even
any
the guy
better?
that necessarily like. As listen, I'm probably controversial. You know, Saka has made himself the first name on the team sheet and all of this. But I always think when we talk about Saka, like, oh, we can't sign a winger. There's Saka. Saka is number 7 at Arsenal Football Club. There's a target on his back, and rightly so because of his consistency. Nobody talks to him. So if we could bring in a right winger, I'd be for it. But I personally would lean towards whatever striker. Let's just not put a name on a striker or a winger. If we was guaranteed this random Joe Blogs as a wide man that takes us up a new level, a striker. One love to Jesus because you'd still be part of my team, and commiserations to Eddie and Balogun. One of you could probably stay. I'd probably elect for a striker. You know, I just feel with the way we're sharing out the goals, if we had a proper gunman in front of goal that's guaranteeing us a certified catalogue of goals, we're different, man.
I agree. I'll say same. Yeah.
So I don't
Let me get
know.
Osimhen.
You said Osimhen. Where are you two? It's a tough question, man. That's why I asked it.
I actually don't know. I actually really don't know. Because I like the Jesus Martinelli Saka front three when all are fit. I can't lie to you. I think I would go. The thing is, because I like having different dynamics. Like we've seen, I think Trossard when Trossard's been playing as a false 9, you've seen how Martinelli's like sparked up with Trossard, same way it was with Jesus. But when it was Eddie, who's more of a fixed 9, right? People were calling for like Martinelli to be dropped. Like, do you know what I mean? So his form wasn't great. So for me, it's more about how they interlink and how they play. Like we seem to play better with a false 9 than we do with an actual 9. So I love the thought of an Osimhen, but then I'm thinking, how does that work with our current, iteration? So I mean, whoever's said Jared Bowen, that's insane.
Remember they tried to compare that peasant to Bukayo Saka.
Sorry, I had to type in the chat. I had to reply whilst you were talking. I said, nah.
Yeah,
Jared Bowen is bad, but
yeah. No, I like the idea of a forward. Like, for example, I like the idea of another sort of Trossard, but with more pace. Like, the only thing I don't like about Trossard is that he's not fast. Do you know what I mean? If I had another I like the idea of a forward that can play across all front three. So that's
a bit like another Jesus sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I'm answering it. So yeah.
I'm for that. All right, last question for all of you lot, because I asked a bunch of, we've kind of covered 3-4 of the questions that people asked me via YouTube, but you two as well, as well, because I already know your thoughts. Like, where you look at with Smith Rowe? Because me personally, I think, obviously football's about what you're doing right now, not in the past, but I'm shocked at the small section of Arsenal fans that have completely written off Smith Rowe. I think it's absolutely disgraceful considering what he did for this club last year.
I think on Smith Rowe, it's important to remember that the surgery that he got, that he's recovering from, was meant to basically solve an issue that he's been playing through for 3 or 4 years.
Since the man's 18 or something like that.
Yeah, so it's a really significant procedure. It's not something that, you go into the operating room, they do a couple snips, and then, you're back and ready to play. Like this is something that he's recuperating from and probably will continue to recuperate from for the remainder of the season. I don't think we're really going to see Smith Rowe back at his best until next season. And, I understand people being concerned, but the way I look at it is he's been all the injuries that he's been dealing with have been injuries that are either related to or caused by this injury that he's
sort of thing with the same injury.
Yeah. So there's been knock-on effects from this big injury that he's been playing through. And so the way I look at it is we're going to get Smith Rowe back, hopefully at 100%, let's call it in July. And from then on, I want to see what he looks like in terms of what he can give on the pitch and what his availability looks like. Right now, I'm giving him a pass for the most part because we're not really suffering without him. And, he's still able to come off the bench. I think he's looked decent a couple of times. I think his first match back, he looked... Sorry, say that again?
Yeah, against Bournemouth, to add into your point, he got an assist against Bournemouth with the header from the set piece.
He did, yeah. It was, that header for Partey to score it. And, I think he's shown us so much in the past what a good player he can be that it's really difficult for me to look at him and just say that player isn't there anymore. So, and I think he'll be 23 next season. So I think, that's the same age Reece Nelson is at now. Yeah, let's see what happens. But I'm not at this point where, I'm suddenly deciding to write him off and he's been injured or he keeps on getting the same injuries over and over. Again, let's just see how he looks after, he's recovered from the effects of the surgery, and then we judge him then. But until then, I just hope he, recovers and gets back to, full 100% and is able to, contribute on a more significant basis than he is now.
I'm with you with that, man. S, where you at with Smith Rowe?
That's my favorite player at the club. That's family. So, I'm a massive fan of his, man. So, I struggle to get behind people who are like, we should sell him. Like, I think that's insane. Like, the guy got 11 goals last season for us. When we were in the trenches and we were talking about, where we were, he was the one who literally, him and Saka were the ones that started, that kicks everything we're seeing now. Him and Saka kick-started it all.
He didn't get the number 10 for no reason.
Right. So I just think that he's, like Shams has mentioned, he's been suffering with a groin issue, which it could be linked to growing pain since he was like 19. So, I think that's insane that, the first time he's had significant period out through no fault of his own. I think someone saw the other day, like, he's well over 6 foot now, Smith Rowe, as well, isn't it?
Yeah, he looks taller than Big Gabby, the centre back in the training pictures.
So the kid's been growing. So I just think you need to just let him just grow. I think it's insane anyway that a 22-year-old you're ready to write off like that. Bearing in mind you've seen what he's done when he's fit and firing for the first team. So I just think he needs more time. And if it's as a squad player before he starts to come back in as a senior player, fine. But yeah,
I agree with all of you lot, man. I agree with every one of you lot's comments. I think people need to remember how young these are, and it goes through seasons. Obviously, we're not Manchester City, but there's always one great player at City who finds himself out of the team and he gets a look back in. You've seen it with Mahrez, Bernardo, Foden, Grealish. They play through a great run of form, and it's going to happen, innit? If you want a long career, injuries, good form, bad form, it happens, innit? And I'm happy that we've tied this deal down and whatnot. I think people need to remember Smith Rowe had a bit of that Reece Nelson thing, in that Smith Rowe was kind of at one point where Eddie Nketiah and Joe Willock were. It weren't like Saka, he's burst on the scene, he's doing amazing. He had to go Huddersfield where he was fit and he showed his level. So I think people need to remember he's slightly playing catch up in terms of his development, and I think he's a key player. And I think anytime Arteta gets to speak about him, he speaks about his adaptability across a couple of positions, man. Last question, because I think this is an interesting one. If Jesus stayed fit, how many Prem goals do you think he'd be on? I hope 10 or 11 or something what Saka's on, but where you lot up with that?
Yeah, he's on 5 now, isn't it? 5 goals, 5 assists.
Yeah. Too poor for someone as good as him, man.
And he missed 4 months. I don't know how many games that was because of the walk. Is it like 10 games or something like that?
10, 11, something like that.
I'd like to think he scores once every 2 games. He had like a bit of a dip in, I wouldn't say even dip in form, because he was still good in those games, but he wasn't getting the numbers, shall we say. I still believe he'd be on, like you said, 10, 11, 12, but also racking up the assists. I don't think Martinelli would have had that spell where people were randomly hating on him, because as much as I love Nketiah, I got to back him. He's from GH. The link up with Martinelli, it wasn't the same as what you see with Jesus and Trossard and them kind of link up players. So I think his impact goes beyond even just the 11, 12 goals. Yeah, maybe, listen, we could have been 9, 10, 11 points clear. I don't know. We're never going to know these things. So it's always going to be a hypothetical scenario, isn't it?
Facts. Shams, where you at with that? How many goals do you reckon Jesus be on?
Maybe like 9 or 10. Yeah, I don't think based on how his season was going before he suffered that injury, he was on 5 goals, 7 assists, and so I think his role as a number 9 was more supportive than it was actually putting the ball in the back of the net. Sorry, say that again?
He's essentially a defensive forward. He's our first defender on the pitch, really, with the way he presses the Odegaard.
Yeah, I think he's that guy who allowed Saka and Martinelli to get more involved in attacking moves. So, I think he grabs a goal here and there, and I think sometimes he really is the tip of the spear in terms of our attack. But generally speaking, I think he'd still have fewer goals and assists if he'd stayed fit up until this point.
I'm with you with that. S, where you at with that?
Yeah, it's a tough one because even though I agree with you guys that he's like a pressing forward from the front, like he has had a lot of chances that he's missed as well. I just think I always think with Jesus, and if you look across his career, he's a bit of a streaky forward. Like he's the sort of guy that could probably get like 7 in 7, but then go a couple months without scoring, unfortunately. So I just think the reality is that it is what it is. And it's a shame because when you look at him, you're like, he has all the attributes. Like, do you know what I mean? There isn't really any reason why he should be such a streaky or maybe even average finisher, as you can say, man. So I think if he had stayed fit, he would have already been into double figures. But yeah, if you ask, does he have the ruthless nature of others? Probably not, which is a shame. I actually think probably someone like Martinelli is probably a better finisher than him overall. But it is what it is. Like you said, his impact is unquantifiable because he does a lot more than just score. And people will be like, oh, come on, a striker. But you've seen it. Like I said, our best periods have been when we played with more of a false 9 in Jesus or Trossard rather than Eddie, even though Eddie gets him goals himself, but it's how it impacts the overall dynamic. So I can't speak bad on him. I would like him to get his numbers up. And I think, funnily enough, we spoke about, Saka, Ødegaard, Martinelli, even Nelson, all these guys have had their moments. I actually think there hasn't been a moment for Jesus. So now that he's fully back, like it'd be great if, in the last 10 games that, he could be the one who could carry the load for us over the line.
You said it there, man. Like to quote Arsene Wenger, I hope he is like a new signing. Obviously, we're close to 90 minutes. I don't want to keep you lot too long. Let people know where they can find you lot, man. This has been a fantastic chat, man. You lot take the floor.
Yeah, thanks. So you can find me on Twitter at SV Carbaholic. So if you like it, I just waffle and I complain and I moan about stuff all the time. But listen, like you guys, I'm behind the team, man. So hopefully we can just see it through and just celebrate at the parade in May, man.
Amen, man. Talking to existence, man.
Yeah, and you can find me at Shamsdale, and it's like Ramsdale, but Shamsdale. And you can find me talking about the Arsenal on This Week in Arsenal, which is, again, a podcast I do with LT Arsenal. Comes out Mondays, sometimes Tuesdays. And this has been... I've had a lovely chat with you guys, and the season has just been so much fun. And if you enjoyed what I said, and you also want to hear me say nonsense, and occasionally make fun of Spurs fans, come on by.
Yeah, the last bit you got me there, so I shall be pressing immediately. Likewise, man. Just a menu on what. Twitch, Twitter, whatever socials you man got, YouTube as well, Little Football Pod there. Again, based on everything, not just Arsenal, but obviously there's going to be a heavy Arsenal bias there, as per usual. When I get the DM
fighting for Arsenal fans' lives in the last.
Yeah, episode, I was fighting last time, man. But yeah, whenever
some extreme cap on our players, man, extreme cap on that.
Whenever I get the call up from DG, man, I have to just change my entire day to say,
I don't do that, man.
You cannot ignore such a call up. So,
Look at this guy, stop doing that, man. Look,
pleasure to be here once again, man.
But yeah, I appreciate you three being tuned in. Obviously, when this stream is done, people, you just have to look in the description and all three's information will be there. But yeah, people, man, if you haven't subscribed, follow, do what you need to do. Follow the random on their socials. Lads, it's been amazing. I'm going to love and leave you lot. People, we're out, man.
There's always that active and that defenders. I think like